It's time for a review of The Crown, the latest release from Che Dorval. This is a bit different to my normal reviews of rock and blues, but she has worked closely with another musician of whom I'm a huge fan, so I'm excited to find out what's in store. With all that being said, my name is Wild from Wild Wild Southwest Child. Let's get straight into the review! We open with the title track and what can only be described as a big anthemic sound, as if Florence Welch was singing over the drums from When the Levee Breaks. That's how big it is. Take note, this is how you open an album. Che's voice is sweet, smooth and articulate. You can really hear the passion in her voice, and the control she has over it is like nothing I've heard before. Falling Under has a clear Amy Winehouse vibe, but more polished and shinier. The lightly distorted guitar in one ear pairs perfectly with the brass section in the other, and I think I can hear a cheeky little saxophone mixed in there too. I love me a bit of saxophone, ever since I first heard Pink Floyd's Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Che's voice floats up and down like ocean waves washing over a sandy beach, making this title fit perfectly. One-note melodies have been very popular in mainstream music for the past decade, possibly due to the overwhelming influence of rap, so it's refreshing to hear someone write such expansive musical phrases. It makes us feel like we're on a thematic voyage rather than simply hearing sentences from a script. The psychedelic intro of Loveless flows gently into an almost lo-fi hip-hop piece. Seriously, all the song is missing is an anime girl and a sleeping cat. Before I was into blues, I was a huge fan of liquid drum and bass. Loveless features many wonderful characteristics of that genre, such as the soaring yet soft vocals over warm synths, and a drum machine holding a very steady beat that fits so well with the flowing or liquid nature of the music. Rather than sounding sterile and electronic though, Che has successfully given this tune a very organic, honest feeling. The chorus gets a lot stronger than the verse and intro, but not aggressive, never aggressive. Che is showing us that you can express powerful emotions without having to shout about them. Want That Soul has an 80s drum beat under another excellent vocal performance with... I'll be honest, I'm struggling to identify a lot of these instruments. They've all got some very well placed effects on them, such as flange, echo, distortion. It's instruments, Jim, but not as we know it. Ooh, I think that's a slide guitar. Yay. Bluesy and spooky. Ooh, lovely. Blood Red Sun, spelt S-O-N, is a haunting number that feels like both a confessional and a gentle warning. There are some excellent and unexpected note choices in the melody, and it really adds to the atmosphere and the tension. If I was doing this song, I'd probably ruin it with a lot of distorted guitars, so it's just as well I'm only reviewing it. The song's sensibilities maintains the anthemic, almost wall of sound that we have come to appreciate in this album. On the subject of the wall of sound production style, I first discovered Che Dorval in her Space Country collaboration Casualties of Cool with the Deadpool of metal and proponent of the technique, Devin Townsend. As it turns out, she also appeared in his recent albums Lightwork and Nightwork, both of which I recently reviewed before I knew this fact, so apologies for missing that detail. He Sorta Loves Me is a sorta love song? Rather than yearning or celebrating, it is more lamenting, possibly where the titular he in question isn't quite as loving as Che would hope, and her voice is positively drenched with that emotion. We are treated to a guitar solo that is so soaked in reverb, it's as if it can't quite bring itself to be noticed and hang around, and sure enough, it is in, out and gone in too few bars. Simple, but effective. The song Tried puts me in mind of Portishead's Glory Box, but significantly less raw and industrial. This whole album has been an education on the use of effects and production to get a unique and evocative sound. The soaring strings and heavy use of crash cymbals gives a terrific sense of expanse, to the point of almost loneliness and anonymity. You know what, I'ma say it, I feel like this song could be a James Bond theme. Pierce Brosnan era specifically. Oh, and there's an electric organ! That's 3 for 3 on Wild's list of favourite instruments to feature. To celebrate, why don't you try hitting that subscribe button? You know, see what happens. If you like what you see here and want to see more, I'd really appreciate it. It's important to note the comma in the title of this track, which is Sleeping Stoned. This implies that there are two separate but concurrent states of being. Let's see where this takes us. Sleeping, Stoned opens with some gentle, laid-back, acoustic noodling. Che is showing off her singer-songwriting abilities here, and it is a beautiful piece. But the noodling is incredibly repetitive. It's the same notes at the same strength and the same pattern throughout the whole song. Don't get me wrong, this stripped-back approach is a breath of fresh air compared to the massive sound of the rest of the album, but if anything, it would have been better placed sooner in the tracklist. That way, it could give a little bit more variation in the intensity levels as we listen through it. If you told me that the penultimate track, Lion Eyes, was inspired by Chris Isaak's Wicked Game, I would agree with you wholeheartedly, but add that it's definitely one of the more upbeat tracks of the album. As we reach the chorus, however, the sleazy guitar line is exchanged for something a bit heavier. It isn't heavy like Led Zeppelin or angsty like Green Day, but it deviates from the aforementioned Wicked Game aesthetic and is pretty balls to the wall considering the rest of the album. Ooh, another spooky intro washes over us before Che's voice comes leaping in, accompanied by some very heavily affected piano notes. Unless it's a guitar. It's so hard to tell what's what in this album. kinda love it. The song is called What Is Enough, Desired and Adored. Desired and Adored being in parentheses, which is an interesting viewpoint to present on the closing track. It sounds like Che is desperate to make herself heard. As it progresses, this piece turns more and more industrial. Yeah, there's definitely some Portishead and, dare I say, Massive Attack influences here. Both acts are from the West Country as well, so I gotta name them. Like I said, I wasn't sure what to expect before going into this album, and I'm pleased to say I've enjoyed myself. But I personally would love to hear a bit more in the same vein as the last two songs, but that's entirely personal preference. Which is kind of the point, I guess. I hope you enjoyed my review of something quite unlike what I usually feature on this channel. Normal genre reviews will resume in a few days with a very blues rock album review, so please keep an eye out for that. I give this album 7.5 crowns out of 10.